Hello and welcome to the second episode of Straight Talking Sport with me, Grant Elliott, John Winchester.
Hi there.
Ryan Hodge.
All right.
And Kieran Pick.
Hi.
Today we're going to be talking about England's World Cup qualifying campaign with the results against Montenegro and Poland seeing England through to Brazil 2014. We're also going to be talking about the PGA Championship looking to be moved outside of the US in 2020. And Sachin Tendulkar announcing his retirement last week after 200 tests. So we're going to start off with England. And breaking news today, we are unseeded for the draw. We beat Montenegro 4-1 and Poland 2-0. What was we worried about, guys?
Well, there's always that element of doubt with England. We put in some good attacking performances. Defensively, we're a bit on the frail side at times. I think we were lucky to get a clean sheet against Poland. They should have scored on at least one occasion. But I just think we should savour the moment. We got to the World Cup. Everyone was doubting it at one time or another. There were better teams ahead of us that got into the seeded places. So, we're in pot 4, but it doesn't really matter, to be honest. I think we should just savour the moment for now, worry about it when the draw comes out. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you look back at World Cup 2002 in South Korea and Japan, England weren't the top seeds in that group. We drew Argentina, and thankfully, luckily, we beat them 1-0 via David Beckham penalty. So just because we're not going to be seeded, okay, we might draw a team like a Spain, Brazil, or Germany. But there's also Switzerland and Colombia, who are good teams, don't get me wrong, but England, there's a good chance England could beat them on their day. So I don't think we should be worried about the draw just yet. There's, a month, 6 weeks, and
December 5th.
December 5th, yeah. So 6, 7, 8 weeks, however long it is, and we've got to wait 6 months after the draw's completed until we actually go to Brazil. So, we've got a few friendlies coming up. They're planning to get Germany to play at Wembley in next month, possibly Australia as well, for the FA's 150-year anniversary celebrations. So just save the moment and worry about the World Cup until, June next year.
Yep, Kieran?
I think my opinion of Hodgson as managers drastically improved since these last two qualifiers. He ditched his defensive, more natural game, went for a gamble in Townsend. It paid off. In both matches, he was the star of the show, in my opinion. And now we've gone through this qualifying campaign unbeaten. So that there are positives to build upon. I think all we need to do now is just keep our feet on the ground. Don't expect us to win the World Cup. At this stage, I would consider a successful World Cup just getting out the groups. And anything more than that would be a bonus.
There was comments by Steven Gerrard today saying, don't heap pressure on us. Don't expect us to win the World Cup. I think there is a certain element of some England fans understanding we may not win the World Cup. The chances are we're probably not. But there's still the optimism that always surrounds England closer to the time. And like you said, Kieran, Andros Townsend, Roy Hodgson, he's shown that he's not scared of giving players a chance. And Townsend, 2 caps, 2 brilliant performances, and basically secured our place in the World Cup, didn't he?
He has been on fire for Spurs this year. Obviously, at the end of last season, he was loaned out to QPR to get some Premier League first-team football, which has undoubtedly been tremendously helpful for him. It was the first time he'd been a regular at a Premier League football club. He'd had many loans out to Football League clubs. And now he's managed to get into the first team at Spurs, which, wasn't always likely. They got rid of Bale, but with the money he got from Bale, they brought top players in, and he's done well to force his way not only into the Spurs team but now into the England starting lineup. And if he continues the season as well as he started it for both club and country, then I think he'd be one of the starting players for the World Cup matches next year.
I also thought the selection of Carrick was massive against Poland. It gave Gerrard a little bit more licence to roam around, which he obviously prefers. And he's just that little bit of calmness and composure in front of that back four, which I don't think we have when we've got Gerrard and Lampard. And I was really, in a way, I was actually a little bit disappointed that Carrick got taken off so early on. I thought we looked a little bit more open actually once Lampard and Gerrard were back in the middle.
Yeah, Michael Carrick's one of those players who goes under the radar but always puts in a good performance. We're speaking about giving players a chance. A few papers today have put out provisional squads. I know it's really early still, but they've put out maybe just some wild cards, players impressing this season. Ross Barkley, one of them. Raheem Sterling might be having a shout. Darren Bent is with Fulham, back on the goal trail, and Jordan Henderson. Do you reckon there's any of those four who could push for a playing seat?
Well, I think it's important that we're not playing all the old guard at this World Cup or any of the friendlies. This should be a World Cup for experimentation. We should be playing some of our youth, getting them game experience against some of the bigger teams on the bigger stage. There's no reason why any of those that you mentioned can't get a place, because they're both doing, or they're all doing great jobs for their respective clubs. Maybe some aren't playing all the time, but especially if players like Darren Bent keep scoring, like he's been out of the picture for quite a while now, but there's no reason why he can't get a place. So
I personally don't have a problem with the older players being selected and starting matches. If you look at Italy when they won the World Cup in 2006, Cannavaro, Del Piero, Totti, they had Buffon, obviously, they had a really experienced and you could say old squad. And okay, the Italian style of football, just defend and counter attack and hope to get a goal on the break. It's not the most high tempo of football, so maybe they could have got away with it. But experience, there's no replacement for experience. Yes, there's been Townsend and other players that have, like Barkley, who's youthful and fresh, and they're wanting to fight for their place in the team. But I don't think there was a substitute for experience.
Well, I just think that 4 years ago when we lost to Germany in the World Cup, Gerrard and Lampard were the midfield then. Obviously, we're not going to go with both of them this time round, but there's an argument to say that we're not going to win this World Cup, are we? The chances of that happening are really unlikely. We should just use this World Cup to give some of the new players some experience, really, because Greg Dyke's targets 2020 semi-finals, 2022 win it. We're not going to win it this time, so I think why not give some of the newer players a chance now we're there?
I'd say from now until the World Cup there will be a massive spotlight on English players getting playing time in the Premier League. Players that you mentioned earlier, Henderson, Bent, Ross Barkley, they've started the season well because they're playing a lot. And I wouldn't be surprised to see a lot of English players transferred in January, just to push for their place in the final squad. Out of all of them, I think Barkley's probably got the best chance of getting picked. I think Hodgson does like him. I'll be surprised if Darren Bent gets picked though.
I think Henderson, if he started well for Liverpool this season, I think he'd be a useful option just because he's kind of versatile. You can play him in centre mid, maybe an attacking midfielder on the right wing, and occasionally for Liverpool he's shifting at right back. So if you're looking for someone to cover more than one position, Jordan Henderson might be a candidate to take on the plane.
I think another player that hasn't been mentioned yet is Michael Dawson, captain of Tottenham team. He's got one of the most clean sheets in the Premier League. He just hasn't been given a chance at international level, but I think he could be a genuine contender for a place on the plane.
I think he's had a bit of his injury issues. Maybe that's why he's not always been looked upon for the England squad. But as you said, if Spurs continue to progress up the table and their defence holds out strong, he might be a candidate.
I mean, touching on what John said there about maybe giving Michael Dawson a chance. I mean, against Poland, we kept a clean sheet, but there were a few times when Robert Lewandowski had a few chances at goal. Hart pulled off a good save and made sure that we had a clean sheet and made sure it wasn't a nervy finish. But is there a place, seeing as we've lost John Terry and Rio Ferdinand now, I mean, Jagielka and Cahill done well, but do you think maybe a centre-back is possibly somewhere Roy needs to improve?
I'd say so, but there's quite a big gap at the moment between the experience of Cahill and Jagielka and the youth of Corker, Jones, Smalling. There's not really too many English centre-backs that are right at their prime at the moment. So it's all up to Hodgson to try and find some kind of balance. he obviously trusts Jagielka and Cahill quite a lot. And although they're not world-class centre-backs, I think they're what we need for the World Cup.
I think Roy can only only choose what he's got around him, and centre backs probably our weakest pool of players, because I don't think we have a world class centre back at the moment. So I think that's one of the key objectives that needs to be addressed, if not by this World Cup, by the next Euros and beyond.
I think all you got to do is just look at the stats. I don't put the cat amongst the pigeons, but Jagielka and Cahill at centre back, they've been part of a defence that's conceded the second least amount of goals in the UEFA World Cup qualifying groups. You can't really say, oh, they're not world class. I mean, okay, they may not be world class, but if they're doing a decent enough job, if they're working together really efficiently, together as a unit, then why worry if they can hold out their own against world class strikers?
Years ago, we'd had Terry and Ferdinand for years and years, and that was looking our strongest position, because we also had like Ledley King playing really well.
Sol Campbell was there as well.
Carragher, and I think it is just that moment of that period of transition where we've just got players who can play well as partnerships but don't stand out as in a crowd as individuals.
Yeah. Just quickly, last bit on England. There's been talk about the strikers. I mean, I think we know that Sturridge and Rooney and Welbeck are three that are probably going to take 4 seats as usually taken by strikers on the plane. Ricky Lambert, Jermaine Defoe. I mean, there's talk, Roy, that he likes Saido Berahino, the West Bromwich Albion striker, and he might get a call up to the squad for the friendly matches. I mean, who do you think will take that final spot striker-wise?
I like Jermaine Defoe. I think he's really good, but obviously now Spurs have got Roberto Soldado. He's not going to be. He's only been playing in the Europa League and the cup matches. Whether or not he'd be open to a move in January to perhaps boost his chances of going to Brazil next year, that might be something that he needs to do. But as you said, there's only 3 probably guaranteed seats. Berahino, he's only just come into the plans at West Brom. He had a really good outing in the Capital One Cup, and then that obviously progressed into Premier League starts and matches. I think it's too early to perhaps, he's only had I don't think he's ever had 6 or 7 first team appearances for West Brom, and for him to already be mentioned into getting into the England squad for the World Cup, I think it's a bit too early. Just wait and see what he can do. Do
you think he'd be a bit of a sort of like unknown player, if you like, taken to the World Cup? I mean, we had Theo Walcott go before to the World Cup, and no one really knew much about him. John, do you reckon that Berahino could fill that void and be the player that could come on and change a game that no one's heard of? I mean, Michael Owen did it as well at 98.
I think if he was taken, he could, but it's whether he would be taken, whether he could be trusted enough. Obviously, it would have to be down to how he performed this season at West Brom. He'd probably get a run out in one of the England friendlies, or a couple of them. But I think if it came down to it, I think it would be a toss-up between Ricky Lambert or Andy Carroll when he comes back from injury. Whoever has a better season, because that's sort of like a different option from the sort of strikers like Sturridge or Rooney. So I think whoever has a better season out of them would get the last seat on the plane personally.
Yep. Moving away from football now, we're going to go to golf. The PGA Championship. There's some debate that maybe they're looking to move the tournament outside of the US in 2020. Do you think it's the right move? Do you reckon they should move outside the US?
It just reflects how sport is globally now. Every sport wants to branch out, and effectively it's all about money, isn't it? Every sport wants to increase their revenue. To be honest, it would be quite exciting to watch a PGA event in England, but in terms of affecting the sport that much, I don't think it's going to make much of a difference.
I don't think if it was to move outside of the US, I'd say 90% certain or 90% sure that it'd move to an Asian country, Japan and South Korea. If you look at some of Hideki Matsuyama, he's one of the most he's talked about his potential, how he could be one of the top golfing talents in the world from Japan. And also we've had former major champions, KJ Choi, former PGA champion. I think if the PGA Championship was to leave the United States, I'm almost certain that it'd go to an Asian country.
Yeah, as Kieran said, it's representative of what's happening in the world at the moment. There's a global shift. The USA, I believe, have 3 majors currently in the USA, and the other one's in Britain. So if one was to move to either Europe or Asia, as you say, Ryan, I think it's only going to promote the sport more, if anything, to branch out to other countries that may not necessarily even get a look in at even watching a major. So,
I mean, even going off a bit of a tangent, snooker, in the past 3 or 4 years, the amount of tournaments that have been moved from, well, it's not been moved, they've just added tournaments into China. You know, the China Open International Championship, Shanghai Masters, so many events now happen in China because sports like snooker and golf are becoming so global and so big. I mean, even if you just look at economics and politics, China and India are now some of the biggest economical powerhouses in the world, so you can't really ignore them off major sporting event calendars. You're going to have some major, I mean, the Shanghai Olympics, Beijing Olympics, excuse me, that shows that China is now sort of coming into the 21st century. They're sort of showing off their financial powers, and they want to host the major sporting events.
I think there is a big shift in sport being taken to Asia, as you say. Another Asian tournament will be the World Cup in Qatar. You know, that is going to, increase the population of football fans in Asia. Also, American football, you know, the NFL. You know, we have a few games over here at Wembley. They're looking to, rumoured to be having a permanent team in England as well. Going to cricket now. Last week, Sachin Tendulkar announced his retirement. He will retire after 200 tests. But here's a tough question. Is he the best batsman ever?
Oh, it's a difficult question.
yeah.
He's, without doubt, the best player of our generation. When you say best batsman ever, you've got to look at the past greats of Bradman and Sobers and even, like, Viv Richards. But he's the most technically gifted batsman I've ever watched. He's so complete, and I think he scored like his first century when he was like 15, and to have such a long career to sustain it at the top is a massive achievement, and it'll be nice the fact he's ending on 200 tests as well.
I think in terms of a fan base, he's unparalleled to anyone else in any sport currently. You've got to look at like footballers like Ronaldo, Usain Bolt, but really he's on another level, I'd say. So whether he's the best batsman, it's debatable at best. But in terms of fan base, he's up there. He's top.
I agree with Kieran. I mean, obviously, we're just 1920. We've not seen greats like Viv Richards, Garfield Sobers, Don Bradman in their prime. Footage has been quite scarce, obviously, from the Bradman era. But in our time, you know, Brian Lara, he was during the 90s and early 2000s one of the top batsmen along with Sachin Tendulkar. And you look at nowadays, Chris Gayle, a very destructive batsman who's he kind of a bit different in Tendulkar in the fact that he just wants to get boundaries mainly. But I do think in our generation, Tendulkar is probably the best. And if you look at the stats and Wisden, and Wisden's almanac, they rank so Don Bradman as a better batsman, as Sachin Tendulkar. But then it's just Tendulkar above the rest. I think it is nice for him to get his final Test appearance at Mumbai, his home ground, and yeah, I think it will be a big hit for Indian cricket.
Yeah, I mean, he's probably India's biggest ever sporting hero. I mean, he's almost treated like a god out there. Do you think there's anyone else in sport who's so beloved by a country as much as him in any sport? Do you reckon there's anyone out there that's like him?
I mean, on a global scale, I think Muhammad Ali, he was globally loved. But I mean, Usain Bolt maybe as well, but I'm not sure.
Well, Dhoni is massively loved by India now. So as soon as Tendulkar does retire, they've got a ready-made god replacement, if you like, because they treat him almost as highly, I think.
Yeah, there was also Virat Kohli. I mean, they have got. I did say it'd be a big hit when he retires, but they do have a tremendous squad anyway. So, just the star power name of Sachin Tendulkar will be a big hit rather than the loss of the squad.
I think Indian fans in general, because cricket is basically their national sport, they idolise cricketers how little boys idolise footballers in this country. They're the role models that. I would say they're better role models than the English footballers that we have today.
Yep. Any thoughts, John?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, he's probably on another level compared to anyone else in our generation, at least. You mentioned Muhammad Ali earlier. Obviously, on a global level, he was loved. But in India especially, there's no one more loved than him. So yeah, I don't think anyone in our generation, at least, who's playing in the last 10 or so years, can match him.
That wraps up the second episode of Straight Talking Sport. Remember to leave a comment if you want us to talk about anything. You can send us an email at straighttalkingsport@gmail.com. You can tweet us if you want. I am at GDE93. John, you are?
JohnWin51.
Ryan?
At Ryan J. Hodge.
And Kieran?
At the Kieran Pick, spelled Kyran.
All right, okay. And thank you. Until next time.
Bye.